The machine is cooking. Go to Torah, Parshas Tav, page Yud Dalet, top of the first column. The Alter Rebbe is explaining there's the matzah before Chatzeis, there's the matzah after Chatzeis. The matzah before Chatzeis is without the vav. That's the level of Yirat Tata, the lower level of Bittul, the Muna, which is below Seichel, and therefore it needs to be guarded that evil shouldn't have a uniqueness, nourishment over there. On the other hand, the matzah after Chatzeis, that's what we're up to now. That doesn't need guarding. So he says, and that what happens? Nimshach Melach Malchi Hamlochim. So he said, Malchi is 2, Malachim is 2, is 4. That's the 4 levels of Malchus of Atzilus Bria Tzir Asiyah. And then Melach Malchi Hamlochim is the level of Malchus Dein Sof, which is infinitely greater. V'zeu inyan Matzah Beit Shachar Chatzeis. The Matzah is the level of Bittul. Avch Matzah came Chatzeis is Yirat Tata, which is Amunah, Commission Slavish Bechina Shalamat Midas Amusik. That's the level of Amunah, like we said, by a little child. His Amunah is not because it's above Seichel, it's below Seichel. Zel Bechina Snar Yisrael. That's the level that the Yidden are called the Nar Alad, Chesed Nurayich. Or like Pasuk says, the Chaytala Chesed Nurayich, the Chesed of your youth. Mitzray Karasi Lebni, or Kriyas Atinik Abba. That's like the baby calls Abba. So there's basically a level where the Yidden were still in the early state. Amunah below Seichel, that's the first level of Matzah. Abba B'chinas HaBittul, the Matzah Zu Shachar Chatzeis. But the Bittul that comes from the Matzah after Chatzeis is B'chinas Bittul Amiti. That's the real level of Bittul, above Seichel. In other words, to say somebody believes something when they're ignorant is nowhere near the level of somebody who believes when they're super brilliant. It's a much higher level of Amunah.
But then their mind went in.
No. The mind went in to elevate, like we said, Amunah begins where Seichel ends. So because the Seichel is much greater, now the Amunah is a much higher level. It originates in a much greater level. That's the level of Bittul Amit to be Yiri Lo. Shenim Shebechinas Gilui. It's the level of Melech Malchi Amlochim. Mashal Melmaila Miadasa Musag, more than the level of understanding. Shehei Roz Benafsha. The Chassidus explained, the Pasuk Shlomo Melech says, Pesi Yamin L'chol Dover, a fool believes everything. The Medrash says, who's the Pesi? Moshe Rabbeinu. This is what the Medrash says. Pesi Yamin L'chol Dover is a Moshe Rabbeinu. The question, Moshe Rabbeinu is Chochma Vatzilis. How can you call him Pesi, which means a fool? The answer is because Moshe Rabbeinu has the ultimate level of Amunah. And the contrary, because he's a brilliance, his Amunah is a much greater level. Correct. Because Seichel gets in the way of Amunah. Because of this revelation, which is higher than Ishtalshus. Sheheir Azaleim, Mumayla Lamat in the level of Sirusa del Eila. And that's what it says, made a Godel Zugil Shechina, the revelation of the Shechina. And therefore he says, Matzah Zu, Ein Tzarech Shimer Mechimotz Klau. This level of Matzah, which has the super level of Bittul, because it's super Bittul, it doesn't need the level of Matzah, of Shmira, of guarding, which is Yashas Vegasus. Because evil had no connection whatsoever to the super level greatness of this Gilui and Bittul. So therefore that matzah doesn't need guarding from chametz, and therefore the pasuk says like this: it could become chametz. Ki la yuchalas mameya. It was impossible for it to become chametz because of the great gilui. The matzah in Mitzrayim, the pasuk says, "Ushmartem es hamatzos." The matzah before Chatzeis needs to be guarded because it's a low level, so evil can have its nourishment there. This is what the pasuk means. The dough didn't have a chance to rise I mean, what the Gemara says. Ashenigla lehem melech malchi amlochim shezeh koyal b'chinas habeis. That's the second level of bittul. Then yechol to lahachmitz klal. It's just impossible for it to become chametz mibnei eitzim hagilu of melech malchi amlochim shenigla lehem, which was revealed shein sham yanik of achizal chitzenim. There has no connection or place to evil, which is yashes and which is called chametz. And that's what the pasuk says. Vayei for sabatzik ugeis matzah kiloi chametz. They baked the matzah kiloi chametz, not chametz. It means kiloi chametz because loi chametz. It was impossible for it to become chametz. That's what the pasuk says. Ki gorshu miMitzrayim. They were driven out of Egypt. Shein shum achiza klal Mitzrayim. There's no connection whatsoever to Mitzrayim, because of Nigla Lehem. Chassidus explains. By Mitzrayim, the pasuk says, beginning of Parashat B'Shalach, Ki varach ha'am. You got the Melech Mitzrayim. Paro was told Ki varach ha'am. They ran away. When Mashiach comes, it says, they're not going to go out rushed. They're going to go out slow. So Chassidus explains, what's the difference? By Mitzrayim, they had to run out of Mitzrayim. When you run away from something, that means you can't have any connection to it whatsoever. The Gashmistic Kamoshel, if somebody, God forbid, is addicted to cigarettes or to alcohol, they have to be extremely distant from any connection to cigarettes whatsoever. If anybody's smoking in the room, they got to get away. Why? Because they have to have no connection to that level of smoking or drinking, because they have to run away from it. Somebody who's not addicted can stay around people that are smoking or drinking. It's not going to affect them in any negative way. So the same thing in Mitzrayim, the Eden were Memta Shari Tumah. It's before Matan Torah. The Eden were Memta Shari Tumah. Chassidus explains that level of evil, Ki varach ha'am, they had to run away from Egypt. Once they ran away from Egypt, which is in the morning after Chatzos, because Baruch Ha'am, meaning they had this great gilui when Hashem revealed himself, that took it over, they didn't need it. Kiloi chametz. And the nigla lehem, and came a mele nimshich mizeh kiloi chametz. L'chein av shebi lechosim miMitzrayim. Even though from leaving Mitzrayim to Ramses, av shelam kvitzas haderech, it says they did a very quick journey. Mikol came betzir of Hachetzitz or Eshlafis. But nevertheless, Itaka went quickly from Ramses to Sukkot. From Mitzrayim to Ramses, the pasuk says. Rashi says this in Chumash that they had Kvitzas Haderech. He said, but it still took more than 18 minutes. It could have become Chametz. Vadi shoyebati geisem mishir Chametz. In Kolzeh, nevertheless, lo Chametz. It didn't become Chametz. Mitamanal. Because of that. Therefore, in the matzah after chatzos, it says matzah with the vav. Shavav or amshach, animshach from the level of meida god of yirei, which is the level of gilu nigla lehem melech, the vav of amshach of the highest levels. Or kamei sha'eim and betfilah. We say like this in Shemon Esrei: Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibar, veHaneira. We should say Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibar, Haneira, Kel Elyon. Why do we say a vav veHaneira? Say Kel, Hagadol, Hagibar, Haneira. He says, what is veHaneira Kel Elyon? B'teises vav, Mashenkin Hagadol, Hagibar is without vav. The Rebbe says, he explains in Betzchan or whatever. In other words, there's a level veHaneira is Gilu Shechina, the veHaneira, the ultimate level of Yirei Ilah, which is from Nigla Lehem Malach Malchi, which is the level of Mashen Ken Yirei Tata. Huh?
The vav is Amshach.
Yeah, that's what always are Amshach. Because even grammatically, usually when you have a whole bunch of things, by the last one you say and. Right? in English also, the last, you don't say and. By the last one, you say and. In Lashon Kodesh also, if you're mentioning a whole bunch of things, you only add a vav by the last one to show that's it, it's the last one. Here, it's not the last one. You say Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibar, Kel al Gemach Hasadon Tevim, Kaine Hakel. So over here, you're talking about vav, v'haneiro, you're talking about that level of neiro. Mashenk and Yedatata, which is called matzahs without the vav. Okay, therefore, it needs to be protected from the evil forces. Avo b'chinas matzah base, which is matzahs molivav, ain't tarich shima. Okay, so now the Alter Rebbe is going to say this concept answers the question he asked at the beginning of the Maamar. The beginning of the Maamar, he so to speak, was forced to explain that there's two matzahs. There was one matzah they ate in Mitzrayim before Chatzos. There was a matzah they ate rushing out of Mitzrayim because it couldn't become chametz. So the Alter Rebbe as before, our matzah we eat before Chatzos, yet in the Haggadah we say, matzah zu shanu eichel al shumah, because the dough didn't have a chance to rise. So the Alter Rebbe as before, the beginning of the Maamar, that matzah was before, after Chatzos. The matzah we eat is before Chatzos. How do we say on the matzah we eat before Chatzos that it's the matzah after Chatzos? So he says, no paragraph, meaning me'ata yesh lohavin, yesh leimer tiris hakushan nizker le'il, eicha no'em b'matzah zu shanu eichon keinum Chatzos laila. How do we say in that God about the matzah we eat before Chatzos? Shal shem shalehus picture b'tzeikas. Shum it didn't because it didn't have a chance to rise. Harizel b'chinu madrega matzah base. The chayda, that's the second level of matzah that was after nigla aleim. And yet the matzah we eat is halacha before Chatzos. We learned in halacha, if you eat the matzah the first night of Pesach after Chatzos, you're not yotze the mitzvah matzah. You have to make sure to eat it before Chatzos, dafka before Chatzos. And the matzah we're talking about is dafka after Chatzos. So how do you reconcile our matzah before Chatzos is a level of matzah after Chatzos? He says, "Inyan who calls that dafke bizman shal Yisrael or begalos Mitzrayim." When the Yidden were in Mitzrayim, there was a clear demarcation between before Chatzos and after Chatzos. Lo yalem Torah mitzvahs, they didn't have Torah mitzvahs adayim. Al kain, oh, you be a chayt and the kabel b'chinas gili ha'otzim of made of God. They couldn't accept that gilui before Chatzos. Why? Yes, by Mechinas Yira Ilah Kedem Chatzos. Eladaf Kedem Chatzos was Matzah Chosevav Yira Tata Bato the Tzeincha, the lower level. By days a Dafka Hoyuchel Mekabel Mechinas Gilean Al Acha Chatzos. So he says like this: in Mitzrayim, they weren't able to get the Gilui before Chatzos of Nigla Aleim. By eating matzah before Chatzos, the lower level of matzah, that was the keli to the higher level of matzah later. But without the first level of matzah, they wouldn't be able to come to the nigla leim. By days and nimshe bechinas zehitz betzekas. But acha shekiblu Yisrael Torah mitzvahs bahar Sinai. But now that we have Torah mitzvahs, we're already a keli to that gilui. Hayr b'chol hashana kula gam kedem Pesach. Mamshich meluk amshachas alukos aidei Torah mitzvahs. The whole year we're bringing now Torah mitzvahs. In other words, like this: before Chatzos in Mitzrayim, Hashem had to give him a mitzvah because there was no other keli to that gilui. So they had to have a mitzvah b'erev Teichel Matzos. That became the vessel that eventually, after Chatzos, Hashem could reveal himself. But with nowadays, that we bring down Holocaust a whole year, so therefore, our king, Gam Matzah zu shanu eichum, Kedem Chatzos, Yuchelem Anu, Aidei Kiyim Torah Mitzvah Shekodem Kol HaShana, to the Torah Mitzvah we keep a whole year, the Kabel B'chinas Gili Shechina, from the level Nigla Le'amelch Malchi Amlochim, Acha Chatzos, after Chatzos.
Because the Torah is switched.
Correct. Because we have Torah mitzvahs, so we have a keli a whole year. Therefore, by eating matzah, which is a level of bittul, we can go straight to the higher level of bittul. Because we have a keli for the whole year. In Mitzrayim, they had no mitzvah, there's no keli, there's no mitzvahs, so they needed that mitzvah of matzah to have the lower level of bittul. Matzah b'kadmisa, first they had matzah, and then ulubasim mitzvah, which is matzah's molicha, molivav. The Zohar has an expression. First they had matzah b'kadmisa. First was matzah without a vav, and then they had mitzvah, which is matzah with a vav. As nimsa b'chinas matzah zu b'chinas madregin matzah beis shu matzah smoli vav. Therefore, it comes out that the matzah zu sha'anu eichlim, the matzah that we taka eat before chatzos, is the gilui of matzah after chatzos. Why is it? Through the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, we get the 613 biblical, 7 rabbinic, is 620, which is Kesed, and also Tarach, Tafresh Chav, which is Kesed. Amudei the Kesed Elyon. Now a whole year we get that level of Gilui. Shazal Atzma Inyan Shenigla Lem Melch Malchei Amloch. Lochein Mashanim Shalav Mechadseis Laila. What the Jews got, Chadseis Laila, we know, is an auspicious time. It says in Shchunoch, in the first simon, that Chadseis, Tikni Chatzos, all that stuff. I'm talking about the time, not the Tikni Chatzos. Shoetz Ratzin, Nimshach Lanu B'matzah Zu Shonu Eichun Keinu Chadseis. So the bottom line is, today, because of Matan Torah, we can bring down by eating matzah. So the question is, why don't we have it? So what do you need matzah for? No, matzah symbolizes the level of amunah and bittul in a pneumius, but what level do we get? We're already a keli to the level of after midnight.
Or you could say this about any other mitzvah?
No, matzah has its uniqueness, which is the level of amunah.
Not the feeling, not...
Tefillin is a mitzvah connects to the concept binding your mind in Har Hashem. So it's at the level of Makifim. Every mitzvah has uniqueness. Matzah is the level of Amunah, especially the first night. That's why, like we learned, the Gilui of Matzah lasts a year. The Hamshach of Tefillin needs to be done 6 days a week. Can't put on tefillin once a year and say, okay, I got it for the year. It's a different gila, different aveda.
But every mitzvah strengthens the emunah one way or another.
Because each mitzvah has in it all mitzvahs. There's a Gemara and there's halacha. Ha'isik b'mitzvah patur min a mitzvah. If you occupy yourself in a mitzvah, while you're doing the mitzvah, you don't have to do another mitzvah. Yeah? Why is it? It's different mitzvahs. Because every mitzvah in Kedush is scholarless, unity, right? Joining. So every mitzvah we do has in it all the other mitzvahs. So that's I'm doing one mitzvah A, so when mitzvah B comes, I don't have to do it because A has B in it. So every mitzvah has a munah, every mitzvah, but there's the emphasis of it. Yitzis Mitzrayim is every day.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a biblical obligation. That's why we say the third parsha of Shema.
Yeah.
Why do we say tzitzis every day? The parsha, right? It's because of Ani Hashem Lokech, which is a biblical mitzvah to mention it. Okay, so there's a mitzvah to remember. Yet, so what's Pesach do? What does Pesach do? Every day is Yitzis Mitzrayim. Every day is Matan Torah. Also, when Shavuos comes, we say, oh, we got the Torah brand new. Every day is Nisan HaTorah. Every day is Matan Torah. The answer is very simple. A Gashmistic example for this is every day we're a day older than the day before. Even on the day of our birthday, we're not a year older than yesterday. We're 1 day older than yesterday. Yes? So what's the whole union of a birthday? Look, I'm a day older. So 2 days ago I was a day older than the day before that also. What is a birthday that all of a sudden I become a day older, well, I make a party? Granted, it's every day, but there's an emphasis on the day that it happened. Yes, every day is Yitzias Mitzrayim, but it doesn't come to the level of Yitzias Mitzrayim on Pesach. Every day is Matan Torah, but it doesn't come to the Gilui of Shavuos and Matan Torah. It's the emphasis on that day. And by the way, that gives the koyach that every day we can have Neisan HaTorah and every day we can have Yitzias Mitzrayim. But there's a uniqueness of Pesach, even though, because that's when it happened. The original Yitzias Mitzrayim. The original Matan Torah happened, so there's an emphasis on that. That's the original day you were born, so there's an emphasis on that.
So every mitzvah encapsulates all other mitzvot, but it has its own
uniqueness.
Mm-hmm. It has its own channel.
Correct.
Where do you come close?
To give you an example of ice cream.
Oh.
Now I understand.
Now we talk.
Perfect example.
You have Neapolitan ice cream. That's vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry together. Correct?
These young people
They don't make those ice cream anymore.
It is.
The sandwich. They make the sandwich.
That's right, Rashi on this. So, when you eat the vanilla in the Neapolitan, it's not the same as you have only vanilla ice cream. You eat plain vanilla ice cream, the taste of vanilla is much stronger than the vanilla in the Neapolitan, or the chocolate or strawberry.
Yes.
And talking from experience, yeah? Now, because, why is it, this is vanilla, this is chocolate and strawberry. Why is this vanilla different than this vanilla, and this chocolate different than regular chocolate? Because the fact that it's a combination, it waters it down a little bit. But nevertheless, in Kedusha, all the mitzvahs are part of one mitzvah, but every mitzvah has its own uniqueness. It has its own vanilla, its own strawberry, its own chocolate, you know what I mean? So, the uniqueness of matzah is a level of amunah. The uniqueness of tefillin is binding your mind and heart to Hashem. Seichel and midas. There's some 248 mitzvahs, but...
In Tohu, in the world of Tohu, therefore Chesed was much stronger than
correct.
discord.
Correct. That's what Chassidus explains.
Really?
Yeah. Chesed of Tehu was unadulterated Chesed.
It's not bullying.
But there's an advantage of that, but there's a disadvantage of that. And that's why it says, Avraham, who is ultimate pure Chesed, Yatsa Mimenu Yishmo. He created Chesed of Klipa. Yitzchak was unadulterated Gvura. He created Esa, which is Klipa, Gvura of Klipa. Yaakov, which is the combination of Chesed and Gvura, Tiferes. So Mitasa Shlem, all his kids were tzaddikim.
What is that advantage of Gvul over no Gvul?
What? So Chesed, if you're talking about Chesed of Tehu, Chesed of Tehu is a very powerful level of Chesed. It's not adulterated with Gvura or Tiferes. Its own pure vanilla by itself. Let's speak Mamalusha. Chesed of Tehu is vanilla by itself, chocolate by itself, this by itself.
That's why it broke it.
Yeah. That's the Avraham and Yitzchak. He had whatever they had. Now you got to give a mushroom of ice cream. Now everybody understands. Okay, good.
Every rabbi in vaccination is the same thing. Some vaccine we need once in our lifetime. Some vaccine we need every 3 years. Some vaccine
Every 10 years.
Every year.
Tetanus is every 10 years. Yeah. I don't remember the details though. When the Rebbe was sick, and whatever the doctors did to the Rebbe was first very much aware of medical things. But he would talk to the doctors like, when you take medicine right from a syringe, right? So you pull it up, that's in the vacuum. So the Rebbe was discussing, there's two ways of looking at a vacuum. I remember the details, it's remarkable, I have to look it up again. But the Rebbe was discussing, asking the doctors, does the vacuum draw it? I don't remember exactly, the Rebbe was talking, what is the vacuum, what does it do? There's two ways of it possibly working. And then Rebbe explained it according to Torah.
Rebbe went through engineering school, so...
It's only engineering, but the Rebbe knew a lot. You see in the JLI, the videos, yeah, or there's the way the Rebbe spoke to doctors about, the Rebbe was speaking to doctors about stem cell research way before it started. The Rebbe was telling to them, why can't you do this and this and this? No, there's print, I mean, you see, there's documented stuff. The Rebbe was already talking way in medical field.
NASA scientists.
Yeah, also NASA, with Dr. Hanoka. Now I'll talk like a kanoi. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva, the Rebbe speaks about, the Rambam speaks about Mashiach twice, in Hilchos Tshuva and in Hilchos Malachim. He mentions it in Hilchos Paraduma, but a few times, but the two main places the Rambam speaks about the criteria and definition of Mashiach is in Hilchos Tshuva and in Hilchos Malachim at the end. In Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam describes Mashiach, he says like this. He's going to be close to Nevuah to Moshe Rabbeinu, because the Pasuk says, Likam Navi Rabbi Yisrael. Okay, no, so in Nevuah he's closer to Moshe Rabbeinu, and in Chachma he's smarter than Shlomo Melech. It's true, look at it. It's clear Rambam. Yosef Chachmas Shlomo Melech. He was pretty smart, Shlomo Melech.
Wow. Did you get it?